Welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast, where we stir up the real conversations behind success, strategy, and self awareness. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today's blend is going deep into what might be silently holding entrepreneurs back. We are not talking about the marketing hacks or funding strategies you get to understand from multiple resources out there, but we here are talking about mindset, behaviors, and the internal blocks that can sabotage even the most brilliant business plan. And joining me is someone who has seen it all from the therapy chair. Listeners, meet Tami Kiekhaefer. She is an LCSW yoga teacher, author, and the soulful force behind a thriving psychotherapy practice for over 2 decades. Her work blends clinical tools with holistic healing. And if anyone can help us unpack self sabotage with grace and humor, it's her. So, listeners, let's quickly dive deep into this soulful, interesting conversation. So, Tammy, welcome to the show, and it's such an honor to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Tammy, so let's quickly dive right in. Um, Before we talk about the topic, I guess it's always better for listeners to connect with the guest, their journey, because just before recording we were talking about that everybody has their own story. So what if you can share your personal journey, a bit of your personal journey, and what motivated you, brought you to this world of yoga, then therapy, and then the mindset and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So I think I was one of those rare people who knew what I wanted to do from when I was little, and I always knew that I wanted to have a private practice, and I don't even know if I knew what that actually was. But I think I've always been kind of the helper person with my friends and my family, and people always came and talked to me about stuff, and I've always looked at the human mind and human behavior as a puzzle. And it's just about everyone has their own unique puzzle, and everybody has their own, when you buy a puzzle, it's got a picture on the front, and it's like everyone's picture is different. And I've always just found it so fascinating to help people put their own puzzle together. And it just kind of fell into place, that, I've always been in the mental health world from college and internships. So yeah, here I am. I'm 52 years old now and practicing, and I love my job and helping people. I did my first yoga class. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how long ago it was, but I walked out of that yoga class and I almost ran into the person in front of me in my car because I was just in a completely different space in my head. And I thought, what just now happened to me? And I love this field of mental health and human behavior because it doesn't have any boundaries. Yoga was just fascinating, and I dove into that and got my certification, and I utilize that with my clients, and it's just you're always growing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Wow, that is so inspiring, and it's so uh good to know that you had it all figured out from your childhood, because I I was not only childhood, but for like my entire teenage years I was clueless what I'm going to do. So that's really inspiring, Tammy. Okay, so now getting into the topic. Um, so, in your experience, since you have been studying about psychology, then behavior, mindset, mental health, for entrepreneurs, what are some of the most common traps, mindset traps that they fall into?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I knew what I wanted to do, but I'd had my own setbacks, as
Yeah.
well with my own mind traps, and you're right. I think that your confidence, how you're feeling about yourself, especially that internal dialogue, what you tell yourself is
Mhm.
so powerful. And I've always thought your perception is your reality, and if you're telling yourself I don't know if I deserve this. Why would anybody choose me? Maybe I'm not smart enough. I've never really been successful. So why would I be successful now? Just all those things that we tell ourselves. You start to believe that. And that's how you show up in your life. That's how you live your life. And I feel like there's, an energy that we all have. And when you put that type of energy out there, it's going to be received as people maybe questioning, like, "Do you know what you're talking about?" Or, and so I think that it does definitely have to start internally and building that internal sense of self as far as confidence and believing in yourself. And even if something doesn't come easy to you, it's almost, when you said that you didn't really know what you wanted to do growing up, and it's so cool because you probably got to experience a whole bunch of things that you decided, "Okay, I tried this, but it didn't sit with me, so I think I'll try something else." So, yeah, I kinda look at it like all these experiences lead you to where you are right now, and where you're
Mm.
gonna be in 10 years, like, I don't know, but right now, you're experiencing what you're experiencing, and they're all lessons.
True, true. That is so true. Yeah, so my common mindset traps entrepreneurs they fall into.
Mindset traps, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I think, you mentioned that self-sabotaging, and I think that mind traps really come down to something very simple, and that thing that it comes down to is a fear. And if it's a fear of I really try to boil this down to simplify things, but it's fear of rejection and fear of abandonment. I think those drive so much of just negative responses, or whether that's self-sabotaging, whether it's holding you back from trying new things, whether it's just going up and talking to somebody and trying to do some networking. Um, there's these fears that we all have, we all have insecurities, we all have these fears, but until you really take a look at it, and instead of asking yourself like, "Oh my gosh, what if I fail or what if they don't pick me?" I mean, it's that thing, like, shift it around. What if they do pick you? What if they do like you? What if I do take this risk? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And, I don't know, I'm kind of, a thinker of if you take some calculated risks, like, don't put yourself in a dangerous spot, but if you take a calculated risk, what's the worst thing that can happen to you?
Mm. And also, uh, perfectionism because um, as entrepreneur or founders, we are kind of obsessed with what we are building. That's kind of our baby or dream, and sometimes there's that obsession behind perfecting everything, having everything under our control, and that kind of gets masked as productivity. But it's really just fear in disguise. So I completely agree with you.
Yes, yes, that's so true. And perfectionism could almost be a defense mechanism, like, really, if you think about it, what is perfect in this whole world? What's perfect in your life? Like, do you know any perfect people? Um, Probably not. And so when we set ourselves to this standard, it's like it's just a setup to fail. But I think that we do it because for a moment it makes us feel like, okay, if I could be perfect, everything will be okay. So maybe it's this like false reassurance that we give ourselves. But then it only leaves you feeling less than in the end.
Right. Right. And also, entrepreneurs, they're wired for resilience, but burnout is real. And it's very much common within, especially entrepreneurs. But the sad part is that it becomes really too late when they realize it.
Mm.
Because again, fear, anxiety comes into picture. that if I take a break right now, I'm getting things out of my hands. I'm letting things, I'm taking away the control. So it will hamper my business. So let's just somehow go with the flow. I'll get out of this. So, how do self worth issues show up in this entrepreneurial grind?
Yeah, I think that that's such a good question because if you're an entrepreneur, you are likely self-employed. And you know where I was in between the time that I was divorced and the time that I got remarried, I had to think about my health insurance. I had to think about I've got two kids that I'm, continuing to raise in a home where I'm the only person who's bringing in any money. And it gets really hard as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed person, because there's the reality of the grind, like you said, and that grind can really start making you not enjoy what you're doing, and it can burn you out. And and it's tough, especially if you're just starting out. I think that there's a lot of factors to consider. So I think that then it becomes a balance of like, what do I have control over? Um, if you I guess I'm thinking of it, if you were to back up and really go internal, if you're if you're looking at what am I battling from my internal dialogue? What am I telling myself? What's my belief system? Am I encouraging myself? That's something that you have control over is your mindset. What you don't have control over, could be, somebody choosing to call you to work with you, for example. But what can you do to, create just set yourself up for success? And I think that that does come from an internal space. But you're right. I think that it is about balancing out that grind and how can I take some time to take care of myself or have some fun in my life or because at the end of the day you're right, like bills still need to be paid and it's your job.
Mm, yeah, I agree. I agree. And um, some in the especially in the business world, some folks might think that mindset work is just the soft stuff, and results they come from doing, not thinking.
Mhm.
So, how would you respond to this perspective?
Well, I mean, I think you can do until all of a sudden it's not working. So I think that sometimes that grind, and I guess with that perfectionism part, I was also thinking, okay, what's the opposite of perfectionism? And it could be flexibility. So allowing yourself to have some flexibility, allow yourself to make mistakes, allow yourself to evaluate your business and recognize, like do an assessment of your business. What's working, what's not working, where do I need to pivot? And giving yourself permission to pivot in small ways instead of like just I'm gonna, burn it down to the ground and totally recreate everything. That might not work for a lot of people. So what if you were to step back and evaluate, what's working and what small shifts could I make in my business that I could be comfortable with? But again, yeah, if you're in this mindset, have you ever been, you work for yourself, you're an entrepreneur. So, and maybe your listeners can relate to this too, but you've got this dream, you've got this idea of what everything should look like, and you're just grinding, trying to get to that dream and that outcome. But along the lines, like the world is changing or technology is changing or even just in your perspective in life over the course of 10 years your perspective on life changes and if you don't account for those things that you only have a tunnel vision of what you think you're supposed to succeed at, I think that that could be an outcome of some big burnout, imposter syndrome, doubting yourself, second guessing, who am I and what am I doing, because you're not listening to yourself and you're not allowing that flexibility of life to come in and make some shifts.
Absolutely. And this is, I mean, I've gone through this. constantly hustling and having uh, no sense of time, having no sense of self that I
Mhm.
exist and my loved ones are there. I need to attend to them. And that whole process, that whole time spent, it eventually led to burnout. I mean, those were the signs which at that real time, I did not acknowledge or I did not realize. But that when the effects were so bad that I was kind of I mean, I was not able to do the daily activities. I was not myself. The things which I enjoyed a few years back or a few months back, I was not doing those. That kind of surprised me, actually. It kind of broke me into pieces. So I had to gather back everything, recalibrate, you know, get into that flexibility mode, and then recalculate everything, start from the scratch. And it is good. It was really, really good because that kind of helped me explore the genuine side of myself. So yeah,
That's
it
so
helped.
important that yeah, that genuine side, like figuring out who am I now? And it's so cool as you talked about it, that you recognized it because things around you started falling apart. And if, the fact that it got to a place where it broke you, like sometimes that's what we need to say, "Whoa, enough is enough." And I try to encourage people to like your body is always talking to you. So if you don't listen to your body, all of a sudden it'll start yelling at you louder and louder and pretty soon you can start feeling depression and anxiety, or you start getting sick, or you start fighting with your loved ones, or you start gaining weight, losing weight, sleeping too much, not sleeping enough. Like your body is always talking to you. And and I encourage people to just really sit back and assess your situation and just like what's working, what's not working. And and yeah, but it probably, breaking down for you, did you find that as it built back up, it was something that actually worked better for you in the
Yep,
new. Yeah? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
I started respecting um and I started listening to my body because um some of the signs were there which I was really, really surprised. Blood pressure or my sleeping patterns, they were erratic.
Yeah.
My blood pressure was high, which never ever, I was never susceptible to that. So that was really, really such a huge wake up call for me, that
Yes.
I'm still young, I shouldn't get this. I worked and I used to work out regularly, and that too surprisingly
Mm.
twice a day, morning and then evening, and I enjoyed it. I was so enjoying that schedule of mine. But after burnout, or when burnout I realized it, my schedule wasn't, it was not there practically. It was all erratic. I slept too much. I was frustrated. I didn't like feeling, waking up, going to work, or in fact, I love singing. I love listening to music. I did not do that. So when I got into that healing phase, gradually I started, my mind, my heart actually signaled that yes, now this is the time to do this, enjoy this, do that hobby. So yeah.
And everything you just talked about, you just checked all of the boxes. Yeah. And 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 hopefully the goal is to recognize it, when you're asleep and you're eating and your behavior, like, I always think like if I'm acting in a way that I'm not proud of myself, then I
Hmm.
need to double check on what else is happening in my life that is contributing to this. And I've definitely gotten burned out. In fact, when I was teaching yoga, um,
Hmm.
I got I couldn't enjoy my own practice anymore because I was always like, "Okay, this is a good idea. This is a great sequence. I love this. I wonder if I could, if I could do this in my practice, or the imposter syndrome, like, oh my gosh, this teacher is amazing and they're just so like authentic and they just say the perfect things, and I wish I could do that. And I started not even getting to enjoy my own yoga practice because it became work. And I had stopped doing it, and then, got to get into, as an entrepreneur, like the marketing aspect of things. It's just not my favorite thing to do. I love talking to people, but I'm not a fan of marketing. um, so then it does. I have to, pull back and really do some assessment of, what's getting in the way of me enjoying what I got into this field to do in the first place. And I've absolutely had to pivot and reevaluate. And I have an online course that I spent so much time creating and spent way too much trying to market it, and it never really took off. And I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to create an online course. I did it. I can be proud of myself, but I can also hang it up and offer
Mhm.
it to people if it ever comes up or if it ever works, for people. But I can't keep pouring all my energy into the online course because it just didn't get off the ground, and it's okay. And as much
Mhm.
of a bummer as it is, it's like maybe it just wasn't meant to. It was more my own personal accomplishment at the end of the day. And it's okay. But man,
Mhm.
that's a hard place to get to for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another, very, very much important from the perspective of entrepreneurship is sometimes burnout gives you, as you mentioned about imposter syndrome or burnout, it also affects your confidence
Oh,
and kind of gives you that social anxiety that you forget about connecting with people or networking with them because you start judging yourself too much. Or maybe I'm not uh, fit enough to mingle with so many successful people out there who have done it all. Maybe they'll feel very, I feel inferior to them. And that is so, so detrimental, so detrimental.
it's humbling, it's very humbling, and I think that that's almost the beauty of it, is to allow yourself to be humble and
Mm-hmm.
recognize, like, you don't know everything, and it's okay, you're not supposed to know everything. And even the people who you meet, I've had people where I put up on a pedestal and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like, I just wish I could practice like they do or talk like they do," or whatever. And then it's like, they have their own insecurities also, and it's fascinating if they open up, if you have a chance to talk to them and you look at them like, "Wait, what? You feel like that too?" Like, "Nah, there's no way." Um, but we all have them, and the only, the best thing you can do for yourself is just continuously have conversations, honest conversations with yourself, and check in, like, am I happy? Am I being authentic to myself? Am I burning out? Where am I putting too much energy in? Where am I not putting enough energy in? And I think that it's having that flexibility to step back, that can absolutely help your confidence, because then you're listening to yourself instead of, judging everything that you're thinking and feeling. Instead, you're listening, and I think that can absolutely help confidence.
So true, so true. Wait, wait. So before we wrap up, Tammy, for someone who is listening and who recognizes, especially all our entrepreneur friends out there, if they're stuck in a negative loop, what's that first small step you recommend they can take toward shifting it?
I always encourage people to first and foremost become aware of how you're feeling. You can't change anything if you're not aware of it. And we can just, make excuses for things and rationalize our way out of, places where we get in our head. But I think that the first step is becoming aware, and then learning how to sit with the feeling, and trying to understand the why behind the behavior. If you're you're angry all the time, why are you angry? And really trying to peel those layers back, and I promise you, you're gonna get down to a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment. And when you can really get down to these deeper levels, you can also make some changes and some shifts in your life and give yourself permission to to pivot, to to change some things or to take care of yourself.
That is beautiful. And if our listeners would like to connect with you, Tammy, what's the best way to do that?
Probably my website. It's, healthyhealing.net. I've got everything about me on there, what I do, and how to connect with me. It's got, I've written a couple of books that are available. And yeah, and I've got a blog and I've got a bunch of free resources on there. But yeah, healthyhealing.net is probably the best way to contact me through email or my cell phone. Yeah.
Great. I have all the details in the show notes. And Tammy, thank you for this rich conversation. And really, I mean, you have really given us a mirror and a map. And this was really, really enlightening. Very, I guess, it definitely will resonate with so many listeners out there. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Take care.
And for everyone of all my beautiful listeners out there, your business growth is only as strong as your inner stability. So check in with yourself, get that self awareness, and give yourself some compassion. And know that rewiring your mindset is not just personal work, it is a powerful business strategy. And if today's episode has sparked something in you, share it with someone you trust and let this conversation continue. Until next time, I'm your host, Sana, and this is Biz Blend, where business meets being. Thank you.